we do take and pass on. It's mostly the National Prison Project of the ACLU that's litigating that case.
Él explicó que hay otro caso que empezó en 1977 contra la cárcel del condado de Maricopa y que este caso sigue andando todavía, donde han encontrado que todavía en el día de hoy el tratamiento médico en las cárceles de Maricopa no son muy buenos.
I may be misunderstanding this, but it seems to me that the monitoring committee is looking on a case-by-case basis at the various stops and so forth that are taking place in the sheriff's office in order to monitor compliance. I'm wondering if the records of that, whether or not each individual stop is in compliance, is somewhere that's accessible. I'm a criminal defense attorney. Obviously, that could be relevant, with respect to things like challenging probable cause with respect to particular stops, or if there were constitutional violations involved in the stops. And so I'm wondering if you guys are looking at each of the individual cases that have taken place, if there's a place that data can be accessed.
Este señor es un abogado y está preguntando si todas las paradas que hace la policía de Maricopa son evaluadas por el monitor, porque puede ser que en un caso que él tenga, puede ser que lo ayude a defender ese caso. And basically, there's thousands of stops that get created. The order requires the creation of a stop form, which they have created recently. We do look at those forms. We take samples of those forms, or look at samples of those forms, and we look at a myriad of issues that are in those forms for compliance. If the order says they must, they must make an initial opinion on the race or ethnicity of the driver. And from they approach a car, what do they think they're stopping? Male, female, white, Hispanic, black, etc. Sometimes they can't see because of blackout windows and so on and so. So there's a myriad of things we look for, and we grade them. They're not in compliance with that yet, but again, it's not unusual not to be in compliance with something that just started. But some of those things, traffic stops forms, in our public records, not our reviews or not. Our reports, once they're filed, they are public records. Our reviews do not include all the supporting documentation. And Chief, I'm not sure if our internal reports are ever public record or not. They're records of the court. That delineates what we observe in that specific stop.
But we would also add, and I think it's important, that part of the order, and the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office has been expedient in doing this, has been the purchase of cameras, which is going to capture these stops. So there will not only be aggregated data, which is required, so obviously aggregated, meaning that there is an examination of all the stocks individually and collectively, but that data and some of the narrative that goes with that data is only as good as the quality of the officer who writes it and who enters it. So if we believe that a picture is worth 1,000 words, they've purchased a significant number of cameras, so we will see a significant number of pictures. And as to what the access will be for members of the community, members of the criminal defense bar, I don't really know for certain, okay? But the general answer to your question is yes, and it's yes plus, because that written data will be enhanced with the presence of
Do you know when those cameras are due to be deployed, and what the policy is going to be regarding when they are required to be on?
The policy is being developed and vetted through the parties involved. And so once we have a policy in place, the purchase of the cameras will only take us a couple of weeks to receive them. There's some training that goes along with the issuance of the cameras. And in fact, I think we're starting to do some of the trainer that is sending individuals to the training, who will then provide the training to a number of deputies, if not a lot of our deputies. And so once that occurs, we will get them out on
Déjeme traducir brevemente. El jefe Bosch está explicando que hasta en este momento las evaluaciones que estamos haciendo son el formulario que llena el policía en la calle para ver cómo actuó y cómo lo paró. La policía de Maricopa está a punto de comprar las cámaras que los policías van a estar grabando lo que pasó en esa parada. Así que no es solamente lo que él escribió en el reporte, pero vamos a tener una película, un vídeo que va a enseñar si lo que puso en el reporte fue correcto o no, para poder verificar si usó la mano izquierda o si puso solamente que usó la mano izquierda, pero en realidad no la usó. El señor Trombi dijo que está en el proceso de adquirir esa cámara, que están escribiendo la política en condición con los demandantes y con nosotros. Estamos revisando que la política sea una buena política, que el policía cuando va a hacer algo, si es un policía malo, que son pocos policías malos, pero todo el departamento tiene un policía que puede actuar indebido, que no apague la cámara cuando él vaya a hacer algo.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the fact that you've described that the deputies are receiving training and that they're also being tested on what the training is, and also that they have an understanding of what the court order says. And I know that, I mean, obviously in this lawsuit, we've established that there was a pattern of racial profiling. The judge found that was in case the fact, and the sheriff continues to, besides all the training and everything that's taking place within the department, outside of the department, while the sheriff continues to talk to the media or to campaign. I mean, after all, the sheriff is an elected person, he's a politician, and in some of the comments that he makes, it goes against, contrary to what the deputies are trying to do. And the sheriff, you're the head of this agency, and in order to establish that the agency is going to change, we're hoping that your leadership can actually set the tone for the deputies in also changing the way that you talk to your constituents. You set a very negative tone about the court, about the lawsuit, about the administration, about Obama. And I think in order to show good faith and in order to extend the olive branch and to show that there's a time of healing, we've asked for a public apology in the past. We've asked for an apology with respect to the fact that maybe the town of Guadalupe was misled in the operation that took place back a few years ago because it was not very truthful, and the mayor said so. And also an apology to the way that you direct yourself to our community. I'm offering right now this microphone to you so that you can offer this public apology.
This is not what this forum is for, and I would like the moderator to please take control of this forum again so that people are not addressing directly within Sheriff Arpaio's space. This is a forum for the public to make their concerns known, and this is not the time or the place for this posturing.
Let me just, please.
Let me translate what they did. Ms. Lena Guzman was talking about the sheriff, and she requested an apology. Perdón, lo siento mucho. La señorita Guzmán estaba hablando sobre el sheriff Arpaio, y ella le estaba pidiendo aquí que ella le estaba dando a él una oportunidad, que él le diera una disculpa a la comunidad de cómo el departamento había actuado, y como el mensaje que él le manda a través de la prensa es en contra de lo que están tratando de hacer los policías, que están tratando de hacer un buen trabajo. La señorita Efrate, que es una de las abogadas del sheriff, dijo que este no es el lugar de hacer eso, de confrontar al sheriff, y el jefe Bosch lo habló.
thing that we would ask is that this is not particularly a forum where members of the audience are here to speak to other members of the audience, and I granted the sheriff is a unique member of the audience. So one of the things that we would like is that if you have something to say and you want to make it in the terms of a declaration, hopefully let's end it with a question so there could be a possible outcome so we can have a civil process here. So I'm sure, Ms. Wisman, that the sheriff's representative taken note, okay, of what you said, and let's just move on.
Estas reuniones son para ustedes, para que ustedes digan sus quejas, que nos las digan a nosotros, no que se las digan unos a otros. Y por favor, que todos nos demos a cada uno la cortesía que nos merecemos, que ellos están cogiendo nota de todo lo que ustedes dicen, positivo y negativo. Nosotros no sabemos qué preguntas tienen ustedes, de lo que van a decir ustedes, no son controlados por nosotros. Esto es un micrófono abierto, pero le pedimos por favor la cortesía en lo que van a decir.
This gentleman right here, I've seen him raise his hand right here, Chris.
Thank you. I'm a physician here in Phoenix, and for over 20 years, and retired now, and some expertise in healthcare, many years of experience, and also in community medicine, which is a discipline that deals with the health of a community. I think that we have an intimidation of this community by sheriff, and a fear that goes on. You can see it by this sparsely populated meeting. And I also feel that you are conducting this meeting in a very strange manner by having the police force here, or the sheriff's office, and answering questions in a debate type of way, and a response. And I would ask that you respond, Mr. Warshaw, only you, as the monitor, instead of delegating responses to the sheriff's representatives. I would hold that you are the responsible person for responses. Now, I think that I had the question before this lady even mentioned it, that this sheriff has never apologized or shown any kind of feeling of commitment to resolve the issue of racism in his part and his staff. And I have seen recently in the federal court that there's been evidence of his recalcitrance in the sheriff's department recalcitrance at responding to that by distinctly instructing their officers not to do certain things that would comply with orders. Therefore, I really ask you, have you seen a apology attitude or a resolve to behave in a non-racist manner, and that this is evident to you? And if not, I ask you to find a way to remove this man from office as soon as possible, because he is a threat to all of us. He is also a terrible threat to our income tax and of the city of Phoenix people and the county and the state, that tens of millions of dollars of our money are being wasted in lawsuits, and that he just puts over to the taxpayer. Recently, there has been some mention of that he should be responsible, personally liable for these costs. Do you have any opinion about that?
déjeme traducirle para lo que no pudieron entender. El doctor que ha sido retirado, fue doctor en esta comunidad por 20 años. Él está en contra del sheriff Arpaio, está diciendo que las acciones de él y su departamento intimidan a la comunidad, por eso que muchos no están aquí como deben estar, y que él nunca ha oído que el sheriff ha pedido una disculpa de las acciones de su departamento, que por culpa de esas acciones millones de pesos se han pagado en pleitos que ha perdido contra miembros de esta comunidad, de su comunidad, y que él pide que él no está a favor que están presentes aquí en esta reunión los miembros de la policía de Maricopa, y él pide que las preguntas deben ser contestadas por nosotros. Y él le pidió la opinión del jefe Bosho si él y nosotros hemos visto un cambio en las actitudes de la policía.
Doctor, I appreciate your question, and I appreciate your service, and I mean that sincerely. But I do want to correct something. First of all, the monitor here, which is me, you're right, we do not exercise dominion over the sheriff. This is not a receivership. What we do is report facts to the court, and the court makes appropriate determinations, and if based on those determinations, a court determines that it's appropriate to take any kind of actions in the form of sanctions, whatever courts do, you know, what courts do. So I'm not in a position to compel the sheriff to do anything. Regarding your question about the apologies, I don't know if I can use the word apologies. You used it in your question. I don't know if I can use it in my answer. I think what you're saying, but these are my words, these are not your words, is there contrition? Okay? Is there contrition? Can I honestly stand in front of you tonight and say that I've seen contrition on the part of deputies or senior leaders or middle leaders from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office as pertains to past acts? I can't say that. I can't. But I'm also the monitor in 3 other cities as we speak. And I can't say that either, because I can't speak to what may be in people's minds. What we really assess is their actions on the street. So whether or not their sense of humanity in the delivery of their police services enhances the quality of that service to the point that they're not just delivering the services, but feeling empathy, concern, spirituality, and a variety of other community. And I appreciate your background in community medicine and the mental health and well-being of the community. That's very, very hard for us to say. But what I can tell you is this. We have seen in the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, notwithstanding things that are articulated clearly in the newspaper, as pertains to either the sheriff or senior executives of the Sheriff's Department, we've also had the opportunity to meet a new generation of young sheriff's deputies, young dedicated officers, who come to this profession well-educated with a commitment to do the right thing. And, you know, whether or not one can see a big ship turning in the ocean absent a stationary object, I don't really know. So what I would say is that in some instances, we don't share some of the optimism that we've seen the Sheriff's Department assess in their own reports about themselves. But do we see the ship moving, and do we see progress? The answer is yes. Is it perfect? The answer is no. As Chief Martinez has said earlier, and I've been doing this for 16 years in agencies, not just in the United States, but across the world. You know, Rome was not built in a day. Rome is not going to be rebuilt in a day. So progress at the beginning is slow. I would only ask, and I'm glad that you're here, and it's interesting that someone from your background would come here, and I'm glad that you do. You will have to help assess that as a member of this community. People who live here, will be able to make a better determination than we who come from afar and come here on a monthly basis as to what's in the hearts and minds of the people who are delivering services. Are there reforms? The answer is yes. Are they where they should be? The answer is no. Should they be at a certain location in the reform process now? Maybe, but this is only 1 year, and this is a voluminous project that requires the acquisition of technology, the introduction of new policies, the procurement of material they never had to use before, the creation of curriculum and lesson plans, and the technology to deliver it. So this is not something that I can honestly tell you is going to happen overnight. So again, I appreciate your question. I wish I could be as exact in my answer as you were in your question.
If I may.
As long as it's brief.
If this was a matter of a physician practicing healthcare in the community, and he did malpractice, your comments about rehabilitating that person or whatever would never pass judgment, because that physician could not be tolerated to continue in doing bad practices for a year, 2 or 3, while gradually there was training, something went on. You just could not have that happen.
I don't want to get into an individual debate with you, Doctor, but I'm not certain that the analogy is the best one. We're dealing with a police institution. I know we can argue that it's a medical community, but there are also individual practitioners in the medical community. I would also say that if we're going to use as something analogous the behaviors of medical practitioners, I don't think that you would find the engagement of a United States District Court judge in instituting and ordering reforms in the way medical practitioners deliver medical services, because any number of medical organizations would gather together to thwart the efforts by a federal judge to make changes in the way medicine is delivered. In this particular case, because this is a public institution delivering public services, and I understand these are life and death issues that police officers deal with, we do have a federal judge, and the United States District Courts are very much behind in monitoring not only what we do, but obviously what this agency is doing. Sir, thank you, Doctor. I appreciate it.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Navarrete, and I'm here. Well, I understand that we're all here because the sheriff was found guilty, and this is an enforcement panel really hearing responses from the community. And for me, I think that growing up here in Phoenix, I really have seen the sheriff's office. And I grew up around the Crowhaven area, so the sheriff's office was always around growing up, and was always kind of going through the neighborhoods, with little miniature tanks, with a lot of patrol cars. It always seemed like a war zone, to be quite honest with you. And I'm really happy with the judge's order, because one thing that the community already knew that maybe wasn't public, or maybe the sheriff and the sheriff's office didn't know, is that there has always been a level of mistrust, and it's always been completely shattered. And all the court case did was prove it, already to, we already knew it as a community. And what I find challenging, it's hard for me to trust the sheriff's office. It really is, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in this room. But I think about even, the camera process. Was there even an open bidding process for the cameras? I think about, the level of authenticity that the county is changing. And I'm sure that there's a lot of great people, and I have friends that work at the sheriff's office, but it's not authentic when you have the leader of a department not publicly making an apology even after being found guilty. And that's a problem at the leadership. And I think it's a problem when you're trying to change this image and put together these pieces that have been broken. And you know, the other thing that I want to mention, you know, and that I am concerned about, you know, because we all know someone that's been affected by the sheriff and has been taken or, you know, referred to ICE, or, you know, it's real. It's not fake. It's not something that doesn't exist. It affects a lot of people. Maybe not a whole lot of folks in Bound Hills, but it affects a whole lot of people in the city of Phoenix, the West Valley, the areas where there's people that look like me.
Okay, thank you.
My question was, I want to know what happens to those who are currently incarcerated that were potentially and were victims of his actions. Like, is there justice for them? Yeah, that's my question, really.
I mean, I can only give you, I personally, as the monitor, can only give you a very, very generic answer, because issues of incarceration, and whether incarcerations are predicated on illegal acts, okay? You know, we're not, quite frankly, the best persons to ask for that question. I'm sure there's a variety of legal recourses available to individuals who believe that they were incarcerated for inappropriate, illegal, or unconstitutional purposes. But our particular order does not touch that, but I'm sure that there are any number of legal authorities in Maricopa County who have great expertise in that.
Este señor nos estuvo hablando de que él se crió en esta comunidad, que él se recuerda a los tanques que pasaban por su vecindario, las policías de vecindarios, y que una cosa que este caso hizo es que los abusos que ustedes han vivido toda su vida con estos abusos, la Corte Federal, el juicio federal, los resultados de ese caso, le ha probado al mundo lo que ustedes están diciendo ya hace años. Él también estuvo hablando de que el sheriff nunca le ha pedido perdón a la comunidad, y también al final él hizo la pregunta de que si hay alguna forma de ayudar a los que fueron arrestados bajo abusos de la oficina del sheriff. Nuestra potestad como monitor a nosotros no nos da esa clase de potestad, de fuerza, de ir al pasado y cambiar lo que pasó al pasado. Ellos han pagado millones de pesos por lo que hicieron en el pasado. Hay otras cosas pasando en estos momentos que puede ser que le cueste más dinero, pero como monitor estamos viendo lo que está pasando hoy, que no pase otra vez, y asegurándole a todos ustedes de que no puede pasar otra vez.
This gentleman over here, behind Chief Sheridan's hat, yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Wade, and I was born and raised in the area. I'm a mental health professional, and I was raised in the law enforcement culture. When my mother and father met, he was a DPS employee, and he went on to become chief of police of 2 of Phoenix's satellite cities. And this is the statement part of this, and I will finish with a question as you suggested. I was raised in an environment of great adversarial attitudes, a lot of us versus them, that I haven't really seen huge change in. And each of those adversarial attitudes on both sides, they feed into one another. I've also seen, and I don't need to use mental health or medicine as a metaphor in this case, I've seen policies and actions instituted that fly directly in the face of evidence that says outright that they're just wrong. My question actually was anticipated by one of the previous questioners. It had to do with the metrics I believe you might be referring to, and I believe Chief Warshaw, you had referred to 87 metrics or 87 points that were being examined. It seemed to be suggested that the only thing that was available publicly were going to be summaries or reports, and that the only things that were being studied were samples of what sound like should be very numerical data points, which could possibly be a vast amount of data, but that probably should be studied comprehensively. I don't understand your use of the word samples. What cameras might do in this case just makes what would otherwise be quantitative points and quantitative research as to whether or not policies and decisions are being adhered to qualitative and more hazardous in terms of how they're judged. I suppose the actual question is the data itself, as well as the methods that the data are being examined with. You had mentioned things like traffic stop data. You'd mentioned interpersonal and financial and dispositional data for individual officers. And I'm not suggesting anybody's anonymity be violated, but these kinds of data, are they being examined in a systematic fashion?
It's a very good question. It's a very good question. I think in fairness to the audience, because you're asking a scientific question, I want to give Chief Martinez an opportunity to translate what you said so everyone can have a benefit. Okay. Now, did we, no, Chris, we needed, so you did not hear?
No, ya. La pregunta del señor tiene que ver. Él se crió en una familia que mi padre y la madre eran policías. Y él está haciendo la pregunta de que si los puntos que nosotros estamos observando son una data que puede probar o puede desprobar si siguen los abusos, si los 87 párrafos que se están mirando son párrafos clave de cómo se comporta la policía de Maricopa. Y también cuando estas cámaras empiecen a trabajar, que será bien pronto, no va a ser solamente lo que escribió el policía en el formulario, pero va a haber una grabación que puede probar o desprobar que si el policía lo que escribió fue correcto o no.
The amount of data generated by this police department or any other police department is extensive, granted. And while I cannot quote chapter and verse Arizona statute, what may be statutorily exempt from the public eye, I would venture to guess that notwithstanding, as you said, the anonymity of individual officers, the overwhelming majority of the metrics that we're talking about is available to the public. In terms of the sample, I would say this much. When we, as a monitoring team, are asked to assess the appropriateness of traffic stops and whether or not those traffic stops comport